We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Now. Good morning and welcome to the Monday edition of Free Association Radio. This is Robert Phoenix. And the ambient noise you hear is not the noise of a working farm, but it is the noise of the neighborhood adjacent to the working farm. I'm sitting in a cafe with Anya, who is a, are you the media person, media liaison?
I'm one of the media liaisons for Occupy the Farm.
Okay, she's a media liaison from Occupy the Farm. We got a helicopter now, looks like, flying over. You guys get a lot of helicopters flying overhead by any chance?
No.
Okay. Well, they're coming in here at about 2 o'clock. Should we just wave to them? You're going there. Pretty interesting. And here's your friend from Occupy the Farm, right over here.
Yep.
So we're here with Anya, and the goal and intent for today's show was to find out more about what they're calling the Gill Tract occupation. And the Gill Tract is a parcel of land. What is it, 15 acres? Is that what that is? Is that what it is?
It's about 13 acres total.
13 acres total, and it's in an urban environment in Albany, California, and it's owned by the University of California, which is theoretically owned by the state of California, which theoretically is the people and the state of California. And a group of people have decided to occupy a working farm that was being used by the University of California. There's also the UC Village, which houses teachers and students that are part of the 13 acres that we're talking about. And when did you guys move in and occupy the farm?
So we started our occupation on Earth Day, Sunday, March 22nd. So we've been here, this is day 15 now.
Okay. And how did this all come about? I mean, was this kind of an outgrowth of the original Occupy movement? Did it branch off? What was the genesis of this idea?
I mean, there are a lot of factors that led us to occupy this space. One of the most pressing was that, so this 13 acres, roughly 13 acres of land, the Gill Tract, was once 104 acres in 1928 when the university purchased the land from a small farming family, the Gill family. And over the last 85 years or so, the land has been parceled off and sold off so that there's only about 13 acres remaining. On part of the 13 acres, there's been a long process to approve a Whole Foods to be built on the lot, and we felt that building a Whole Foods on the last remaining 10 acres of some of the most prime soil in the East Bay area was pretty onerous. And additionally, this is public land that's managed by the University of California Berkeley, ostensibly a public institution, and for them to be planning on, privatizing what is essentially a public resource, we felt is wrong, and it's something that should be stopped. The third piece is that for the last 15 years or so, after a long-standing biological control research program funding was cut in 1996, there have been many initiatives by local community members, residents, UC Berkeley students, and professors to start a hub for urban agriculture on the site that would be a resource for the greater East Bay. And many of those proposals, several of them went to the university to pretty high levels of negotiation, and the university stepped away, left those negotiations without any word or explanation. So we felt that we had to, respect the history of people working to make this agroecological center on the Gill Tract and to continue that fight.
So what was the initial reaction by the university when you guys descended upon the Gill Tract? Were they vocal? Was security there? What was the original response on their part?
Because of the way we planned it, we were very conscious that we might be met with force when we got to the site, but we planned for that and organized the action in such a way that very few people actually knew that it was happening. So there actually was no police presence the day that we entered the site. So it was really wonderful. It was about 200 people peacefully marching onto the land, and we literally just got to work as soon as we stepped on there. The part of the 13 acres that we're occupying is about a 7-acre field, and it is overgrown with the winter mustards that take over in the fallow season. So people just started ripping them out and tilling the fields with some rototillers that we had rented, and planting some of the 15,000 seedlings that we arrived with on the site.
So what's the response from the local community, the people in Albany, like the mayor of Albany or the city council? What's that been like?
As far as the local residents of Albany and the residents of the adjacent UC Village, overwhelmingly the response is positive. For many of the people that live there, this is the first time that they've been actually able to set foot on this public resource on the Gill Tract, and we've had many workshops, we've had several community meetings, we've had now 2 weekends packed full with family events, and so it's really, the support has been overwhelming. People bring their kids and spend the whole afternoon. Also, because our water got shut off about 3 days in by the university, we've had an incredible show of support from the local community in terms of bringing in trucks, hauling out our water tanks, filling them up, coming back, and then helping us water our fields. So I'd say, yeah, the community response has, for the most part, been very positive.
And this is a really different animal than, say, the occupation of Zuccotti Square or even some of the stuff that's happening downtown Oakland. There seems to be a more positive vibe, a more proactive vibe, more organic. And in a way, there's a sense of giving back as well. What's your thoughts on that and how it differentiates itself from some of the other activities that have taken place?
Well, a lot of the mainstream media has been quick to say, well, this is the good kind of Occupy, this is what Occupy should be like, and we don't necessarily, want to make that distinction ourselves. I would say that Occupy, it's not an institution, it has many faces, it's decentralized, so the wonderful people and bring it into their communities and use that energy to organize around issues that are affecting people in their communities in a very intimate way. So for us, that happened to be, deciding that we wanted to preserve farmland for farming, and yeah.
Well, it seems to me that that one of the beefs that a lot of people have with Occupy is that there's a really broad agenda and then there's no agenda, right? I mean, it's kind of interesting in that way. And here, the agenda is very specific. It's to grow food, right? It's very real. It's down to earth, which I think in some ways it's easier for people to wrap their heads around that because of the relationship to land and farming and kind of an agrarian culture that we have in this country. And it's different. You know, there's the urban model of Occupy, and there's the agrarian or the rural version of this. And I think on some level, people relate more to the rural experience, to the rural level. I mean, is that something you've experienced or?
You know, I don't really have a lot of knowledge or experience of more rural Occupy movements. I've, you know, been a farmer myself, and at the time that I was farming, Occupy as a nationally recognized movement hadn't gotten started yet. But I do think that, you know, because urban agriculture is something that, you know, is already important, is going to continue to increase in importance as far as communities and cities and urban areas being able to feed themselves, that it's something that people are really excited about and can relate to, because I think it's intuitive to a lot of folks that as, you know, for example, oil prices get higher and it's going to cost more money to transport food grown on an industrial scale halfway across the world to feed people, that it just, you know, it makes intuitive sense to grow food closer to where you are so it's more easily available, and, you know, also so that the community has more control over how it's produced, how it's distributed, you know, et cetera. And
right.
that's something that a lot of people, you know, that's known as food sovereignty, the right of communities to access and control and distribution of their food. And I think that's really important.
At a very fundamental level, that's a pretty threatening concept, to be honest with you. I mean, not to me, but I think to people in the distribution chain of food, food suppliers. You know, you're taking the capital out of their model, out of their network. And look, I'm all for it, but I think at some level you're going to. I mean, if this continues to grow, there will be some resistance. From the food manufacturing lobby. I mean, it's a long ways off, but I think that if this takes root, to use a agricultural metaphor, this could be a really interesting ground zero between big agra and sustainable food and local foods.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit on the larger issues that we're addressing here, and I do think that eventually, you know, maybe sooner rather than later, the agro-industrial complex is going to start to feel maybe a bit threatened, especially if more and more people take it upon themselves to exercise their rights to, land, to food sovereignty, to land access. And land access has, you know, historically been one of the major issues, one of the major centers of power struggles between the ruling classes and folks that have been under their heels. So I absolutely agree with you.
So worst case scenario, let's just play this out for a second, okay? So you're given some time, you plant your crops, they're growing, and with this growth, there's a sense of hope and, hey, we're doing something, we're really making something happen, and then all of a sudden UC says, okay, you know, playtime is over, farm time is over, we're coming in with bulldozers, and we're evacuating you people. Have you guys thought about that, and you know, what kind of response you might have to that, both emotionally, psychologically, and even maybe strategically?
Yeah, I think that, you know, one of our co-organizers always says that for a lot of people, the media has kind of trained them to see arrest as the end game of civil disobedience, and that it's really easy once, you know, whatever, metaphorically, the bulldozers come and they take people away, that's it. But, you know, the fact is that such an action would not crush this movement, such an action would not crush the supporters for the Gill Tract to remain an agricultural space in perpetuity. So, you know, if it does come to that, we're just going to have to roll with the punches. But I know that we would come back, you know, perhaps even stronger after that, because so many people would feel how onerous it is that a public institution would respond in such a way to people that are actually trying to increase access to education around food sovereignty and food justice in the Bay Area.
So, are you familiar with the 2004 master plan for the UC Village?
Yes, I am.
Okay. There's going to be a hearing coming up with the City Council of Albany and the UC Regents. And the whole idea, right, is to turn this over to UC and develop it commercially. And this is really their end game. Are you guys going to be a part of those things?
I mean, so a few days after we arrived here, there was an Albany City Council meeting that had on its agenda the final vote to approve the lease of the Whole Foods on part of the acreage of the Gill Tract. And because of our presence there, the university actually pulled that line item from the agenda. And, that's very important because that final zoning process would have rezoned a part of the tract as commercial use for, in perpetuity, and it would have also affected the rest of the tract, including the part that we're physically farming right now, because the UC Berkeley has made a promise to the city of Albany that should they ever, quote unquote, need to develop further on the southern portions of the tract, that they would move certain community services such as ball fields and community center onto the Gill Tract. So, effectively making the community have to choose between two things that they want, which is, recreational space and also agricultural space. And we feel that it's very unfair to put a community in such a bind. And also, it just is obvious that they're not committed to preserving this land for agriculture. So
are Whole Foods and what you're doing, are they mutually exclusive? Can they actually coexist together?
I think it's highly ironic to build a Whole Foods on the site of land that was agricultural for over 100 years, and then to put forward this kind of oh hey, we're selling local food by local farmers, when in fact they're paving over agricultural land. It's just ironic. People should be able to feed themselves and not have to rely on huge national chains for their nutritional needs. It's much more powerful to be able to know how to grow your own food, to be able to go to a place where you can learn about issues surrounding food production and distribution and how that creates injustice in our system, than just to go and buy stuff. Like being a consumer, we are labeled as Americans as consumers, and that is not empowering. We should be empowered to be producers and help each other out and to produce good things for each other, instead of being labeled as things that just have one purpose, which is to consume product and keep consuming product.
No, it's interesting that you're quoting this as an American quality, and you were born in Russia. I think it's pretty ironic and interesting at the same time. When you were, how old were you when you left Russia?
I was 6 years old.
Okay. And were you there during any part of the communist regime?
No. Yeah, I mean, I don't really want this discussion to derail into communism or whatever. I mean, I'm a citizen of the U.S. and I've lived here for over 18 years, and obviously I'm very connected to my roots, but communism doesn't really factor into my life as an activist, as an American here in the U.S.
And I know you have to shove off here and go back to the farm, but here in Berkeley, what you're doing is a lot more understandable to a lot of people. But once you get past Fairfield, the world changes. And what would you tell a family of 3 or 4 living in Lodi or living in Sparks, Nevada, about what you're doing and why this is important and why they should be interested or even care?
That's a great question. I think fundamentally, I'm hoping that through actions like this, through the occupation of space that is public land meant for public good, and I know that there are other things that are like this that are going on around the country that are maybe not well publicized. I think that I would hope that people would feel empowered to grab issues in their communities by the horns and address them as a community, instead of just waiting for the powers that be to fix problems. That's why I said earlier that the Occupy movement has been so empowering and inspiring to so many people, because they realize that they do have a voice collectively and they do have power, and yeah, I just think that this whole movement is a very empowering process, and no matter whether you're living in a huge metropolitan area or if you're living in a rural area, that I would hope that people would see that they could come together, as neighbors, as friends, as a city, and change things that they want to see changed instead of waiting for it to come from the top down.
In a perfect world, how would this turn out for you?
Do you mean our occupation of the Gill Tract?
That's right.
We feel very strongly that farmland is for farming, and we recognize that, and this is something that the university points out, that not all of the land that we're on, not all the 10 acres is prime anymore. 7 of it is super prime. It's Class 1 soil, and the rest of it, unfortunately, has been built upon, and through some development, and then the buildings have been cut down. So there is a certain low level of at least contamination through building development there that would have to be remediated, but that's also very powerful, and we know that it could be remediated through hard work and care and effort. And so our goal is to preserve that entire acreage as farmland and to remediate what's necessary, and to really come together as a community around the issue of land enclosure and private development encroaching on public space.
So is there room for the university to participate with you, co-create?
I think we've been pretty since the beginning. We've said, that the history has shown that the university is not committed to really hearing out the concerns of the community and the proposals that have been put forth by the community, and that they have not acted in good faith and have pulled out last minute out of negotiations with proposals that did address, using the land as agricultural space. And so I think at this point it's very hard for most people that have been involved in this process for decades to trust the university and to feel like they have integrity and really intend to preserve this as ag land. For one, it's no longer controlled by the College of Natural Resources. It's controlled by Capital Project, which is a development arm of the university. And, even if they don't have plans to develop the whole thing in one sitting, it is on the chopping block, and that I don't think is an act of good faith.
So the trust has been breached, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I know you got a lot on your plate, and you got a farm to tend to.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me here. I wish I could stay longer, but we've got some important meetings to take care of today that I have to run back to on the farm.
Okay. Well, thank you, Anya.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Robert.
Real pleasure.
Great.
All right. Take care. So that was Anya from Occupy Gill Tract. We tried to do this over Gill Tract, but they did not have their Wi-Fi up and running, so we did the next best thing. We wung it, and we came over to the Crossroads Cafe, which is why you're hearing the ambient street sounds of delivery vans, the occasional garbage truck, skateboards, and passersby. This is true audio verite, coming to you on May 7th. And it is 10:27, and you're listening to Free Association Radio. Somebody's actually calling in. Let's see if we can take this call. Let's see what happens here. Hey, you're on the air with Robert. How are you, and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Nathaniel from California.
Hey, Nathaniel, what's going on, man?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just chilling, I guess.
Long time no speak. Isn't it your birthday or something?
Yeah, it was my birthday a couple days ago on the 1st.
Well, happy birthday, man.
Thanks a lot.
So what do you think of Anya and what we've been talking about today?
Pretty stellar. I don't know. Just listening.
Pretty sharp. I mean, she's pretty sharp. And if that was my daughter, I got to tell you, I'd be really proud of her, right? I mean, it's like, you've studied, you know the issues. She was actually involved with UC in the ag department, so she knows this thing inside and out. And she just cares about the land and wants to do right by the community. And I see nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's all good, and I'd be absolutely proud of her. She's pretty stand-up young lady. The one thing that my kid plays Little League baseball adjacent to that field, and I know that there's a lot of kids in this town and not a lot of Little League space. So as a parent, I'm concerned that somehow lost in the shuffle, that my kid's baseball experience could get flushed down the toilet somehow. So, it's really, it speaks to meeting a lot of different needs in areas where land is rapidly evaporating. And I think it's a really interesting dialogue at the very least that needs to take place.
Yeah, we've got a lot of private property and stuff now, you know.
Well, what's really interesting is, you know, we've got this whole Agenda 21 thing coming down from, you know, from the UN, and it's really big here in Albany. Albany is one of the target Agenda 21 cities, and, you know, it's in the back door of Berkeley. There's a lot of mixed use happening, and that's where the money is right now. It's in mixed use. It's in Stackham and Packhams, and this town is, you know, it's targeted to be an Agenda 21 blue ribbon town. Here comes a truck. You're going to let this go by. So here we have the Agenda 21 initiative really taking root here, and at the same time, you've got people that are reclaiming land, which is essentially kind of what Agenda 21 is doing, but it's, you know, it's coming from the opposite direction. And so what we have is we have this collision between, you know, private interest, which is the citizens, right, which theoretically is the citizens, and the public interest, which I think really is like UC and institutions, not necessarily even companies, but institutions, and that's where we have this real interesting flashpoint taking place. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out over the next few months.
Well, it sounds rather exciting, Robert.
I can tell. So are you just hanging out here listening, or did you want to contribute and say anything while we're on the air?
You know, it's just, you know, it's a shame, you know, compared to what it used to be, you know, maybe 300 years ago. It's amazing how, you know, even in the last 100 years in California or, you know, wherever, it's changed so drastically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even in the last 50 years. I mean, I can even tell you in the last 15 years, you know, how much it's changed here. And, yeah, just not crazy about a lot of the changes. And, yeah, I mean, California used to have a pretty stellar reputation for, you know, dealing with open spaces and wild spaces. And it's just that, you know, a lot of that's gone away. And, you know, the few corporations that remain in the state, people like Clorox and Chevron, who's a really big corporation, they're pretty much driving policy right now, along with a lot of the .com companies and some of the civil defense and military industrial complex companies down in Southern California. I mean, they're the ones that are really driving a lot of what's happening, you know, here in the state. So you're in Southern California, aren't you?
Right.
Yeah. So you've seen just massive changes down there.
You know, since I was a kid, you know, Orange County, it looked so different where it was just so undeveloped, you know, as a child and stuff. And now that I look about here, it's 90% more, you know, it's come from like 10%.
Yeah.
If the cities aren't that much, you know, the surrounding cities of the other, you know, out in the desert and stuff, in like Temecula area, you know, it's become so much more people there, you know, and it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I used to live in North County, San Diego. I lived in Escondido, and I used to commute down into the UTC, and the amount of traffic that came into San Diego from Temecula was just epic. I mean, it was, you know, clogging the freeways. And you know that people were also going west from Temecula as well. It wasn't just Temecula South. It was Temecula. And you've got Fontana. You've got all those communities out there that are just, you know, it just keeps, you know, growing and growing and growing, and more sprawl and more sprawl and more sprawl.
Really built in the desert there. They've really built a mess of homes in the desert.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hot out there and stuff, you know. I think it's pretty terrible.
Yeah, and then you're tweaking the water table, and, you know, it's just completely unnatural to sustain that type of growth, you know, in that area. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, wild stuff. And here we are, May 7th, Taurus. Well, did you do anything special for your birthday, Nathaniel?
No, I've been kind of chilling. I've been trying to get out of this rut. I'm kind of in a big financial bind where I have been missing my mortgage payments now, and I've been, trying to get the place up for sale.
Right. And how long has that been?
I really gotta get a vigor to, make the place presentable.
Right. Right. Are you down? Are you a little depressed? You sound a little depressed.
Yeah. I missed this full moon was pretty emotional for me because I missed my mortgage payment last month, and then this month will be the second month.
Right.
Don't know what they do with guys like me. I've heard about there's a lot of things out there. I heard somebody call there's like debt forgiveness, or I really need to get with a public accountant or some kind of realtor to figure out what I got to do.
Right. Well, I think earlier in the process, obviously, is the better. And from an astrological standpoint, that Scorpio full moon was
really emotional.
Yeah. Well, in the early phases of that moon, it was opposing your sun, right?
Uh-huh.
And I remember your chart. You've got a lot of Taurus in your chart.
Right.
And so the Scorpio moon was, wound up opposing those planets as it went through, its 48-hour lunation cycle through Scorpio. So it would have been very powerful. And Taurus is very connected to the land, to home, and to hearth, and I'm sure there's memories that are deeply associated with where you are. So.
Not so much as the other place. The place I moved from 18 years ago had more, but there's the Step family actually in this neighborhood. But still, I like the connection to the earth and owning property that's my own. It's a different kind of feeling than renting or something.
Well,
but
we're in a Sagittarian moon right now, and we're gonna shift out of that in a couple days, and it's gonna go to Capricorn. So if I'm playing astrologer right now, which I am, I would suggest you take advantage of the Capricorn moon.
Right.
As it'll be trining most of your Taurus planets. So you're dealing with big business and big finance. If you wanted to, use a day to get motivated, I'd shoot for Wednesday for sure. Now the moon would be waning, but it's still, pretty strong. But I would shoot for Wednesday to make some moves.
Hey, well, thanks a lot, Robert.
Okay. Do you want to listen, or do you want to say goodbye?
I'll listen.
I'll put you back on hold.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Hey, you're on the air with Robert, live from the corner of Solano and San Pablo in Albany, California. How are you?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I would like to know if this is a good time that I could give you my birthday and you could tell me what do you think.
Well, I tell you, this is not my astrology show. It's on Wednesdays, but because you called in and because I'm flexible, I can do it for you. How's that sound?
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
All right. What's your name?
Gloria Birch, B-I-R-C-H.
Hello, Gloria. Where are you calling from, Gloria?
Warner Robins, Georgia.
All right. I like that. I like your attitude, Gloria. Hey, so what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to get my my ephemeris up, and it'll take me. It's not as drastic as it sounds. It sounds like a medical. It sounds like a medical condition, doesn't it? I have to get my ephemeris up. Hold on. Here we go. All right. When's your birthday, Gloria?
March 3rd, 1955.
Okay, so I'm pulling up your solar chart here. There you are. All right. So what can I help you with? How can I serve you today?
Well, I want to know what's in the horizon. I know there's a lot of things I know that I have to be on guard with, and pay close attention because of the way things have shifted. And a lot of times I have these strange dreams, and I see people going in the walls, but I don't know where they go when they go through the wall. And I'm not sleeping when I'm seeing this.
I see. So you're having some really interesting interaction with the non-physical world. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Well, let me just check out your chart here and see if I can find. Well, one of the things that you've got going on in your chart is you have Neptune in Libra. Okay. And
okay.
And so Neptune in Libra is, well, from a personal standpoint, it generally forces the individual to learn how to deal with relationships on a very realistic level, because there can tend to be a fair amount of delusion, projection, and not really understanding or seeing, who a person shows up as in your life. And
right.
That is on a physical level, right? Now,
right.
We could look at this from a non-physical level as well, because Neptune is the most fluid, the most cosmic, the most diaphanous and multidimensional planet in the zodiac. And here you are with Libra in that planet, or that planet is in the sign of Libra. What are we talking about now? We're talking about relationship and connection that theoretically can transcend the body. And right now, Saturn is on top of your Neptune. I think it's at about 24, 25 degrees. And one of the things that Saturn would help you with right now is to figure out a way to really ground that, to ground how you can interact with this energy. Do you meditate?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Continue the meditation, and what I would do is I would try to find a good, a really good either prayer or a mantra to really ground you, to really, really ground you. I don't think what you need is more light. I don't think you need more light in your pineal gland. I think what you really need to do is ground, kind of who you are and, in this world, so that you can, deal with what can be often disturbing paranormal experiences or multidimensional experiences. Along with that, you may want to look at changing your diet, and because diet can really, be a very fundamental supplement in terms of how you were able to ground this stuff. So you may want to, look at the types of grains you're eating. Maybe you need more grains. Maybe you need less grains. Maybe you need different grains. But grounding can be really, really important when you're dealing with this stuff. I mean, we go through these periods of accelerated and intense activity, and we just have to use whatever we can in order to stay solid. So, remaining solid, being solid, connecting, grounding, these are all really, really important aspects. I'm getting on a psychic level, by the way, that whatever it is that you're experiencing, that the phenomena it does not necessarily have to do with you, that it has to do with somebody that lives with you or is near to you in your living space. And do you live with anybody?
No.
Okay. Because this is not directly related to you. So part of this. Go ahead.
Because I used to move a lot, like maybe every 2 years I used to move, and I'm a veteran from the military, but I used to move a lot even after I got out of the military. And it seemed as though like every 2 years I was like moving to a different place, and I still see that, And then sometimes I see people that have like the people body and they have like the monster faces.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're seeing lower fourth dimensional apparitions, and yeah, those could be pretty freaky. But you know what, though? As long as you're not scared, if you can deal with your fear, they eventually go away. And one of the things that I was given as a tool by a psychic many years ago that might help you is, do you have a cast iron skillet?
Yes.
Okay. So what you want to do, and you've got to be very careful with this, okay? And
yes.
And you want to get a cast iron skillet, and you want to be able to get like a nice, towel or a hand cozy to keep your hands from getting burned. And you want to pour just a little bit of alcohol in the cast iron skillet. And you light the alcohol. What will happen is that you will get a blue flame from the alcohol, and that blue flame will clear your space. Okay, and you need to do this throughout your space, but just use a little alcohol. You don't want to use a lot because it will explode. All right, just a little tiny bit, and that will help you clear your space, and that's very important. And that's a physical tool and something you can execute. You might be picking up also, if you move that often, you might be picking up some of these disincarnate entities from some of the various places that you've been, and they could be following you around. So you've got to close some windows. So try the blue flame, just a little bit, okay? And
well, doesn't sulfur do the same thing?
What's that?
Sulfur. When you burn sulfur, doesn't it do the same thing?
It could be. It could, but I like the blue flame that comes from the rubbing alcohol.
Okay.
It's just a really pure blue flame. I'm a big sage guy, and after you do the blue flame, go with sage, and that could help. That could help clear your space. And
yes, I use sage. I'm familiar with sage.
What about mirrors? Do you have any big mirrors there?
I have a large mirror that's facing the door, and then I have a couple of small ones that's hanging on the outside of my bathroom door.
The one that's facing your door, you may want to change the position of that mirror, if you can. And if not, you may want to cover that mirror maybe half the day. Maybe when you go to sleep at night, cover that mirror. Because when a large mirror faces a door like that, it's horrible. Do you understand?
Okay, what position it needs to face? East or west or what?
Away from the door. Point the large mirror away from the door. That's the first. I'm not sure if it really matters which position. Intuitively, I would go east.
Oh, okay.
But just move it away from the door. Because mirrors are portals, and when they're facing the door, so you've got a doorway, right? So now we're talking about feng shui. You've got a doorway, which is another portal, and then you've got a mirror, which is another portal. Change the position of that mirror.
Okay. All right, I understand.
Okay, so from an astrological perspective, let's see. You've also got a Venus-Saturn square going on. So Saturn's on your Neptune, and Saturn is squaring your Venus. This is a really important time for you to get very clear on your relationships. And with Venus squaring with Saturn squaring your natal Venus, which is in Capricorn, I also think it could afford the opportunity for you. And again, I know nothing about your relationship life. Hold on a second.
Okay.
These guys are just here. Anyway, there's a strong potential for you to have an important ally come into your life. People that have Venus in Capricorn, they have very good second acts in terms of romance and in terms of finding somebody that they can really relate to. So with Saturn squaring that Venus, theoretically, it should be awakening that kind of desire and the ability to connect with somebody right now in your life. So stay open to that. I'm not opposed to, squares, especially when the square is hitting Venus and Capricorn, because Venus and Capricorn needs to be cracked open, especially later in life. You can actually have a really resonant, loving, and emotional connection with Venus and Capricorn the older you get.
Mm. Well.
Okay.
That's okay. I'm listening, but I think that's still far away from me as far as relationship, because most of the people in my life, it was just someone that, when I found out who they really who they really were, it was someone that just was taking advantage of me. So.
Well, that's Neptune, right? That's Neptune, Venus, Neptune and Libra. I mean, that's what we're talking about. But what's happening, or what we've been talking about a little bit, but with Saturn on your Neptune, squaring your Venus, it's a way for you to rewrite that script.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, Gloria, did you get enough out of our time together today?
Yes, I certainly did.
All right.
I certainly did. I appreciate it.
Move that mirror, light the blue flame, smudge your place. Don't be afraid. Keep your heart open, okay?
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, I just reset the show page. That was unbearable noise. Oh my God, sounded like psychic TV or throbbing gristle or some industrial band. That was terrible. I see Nathan is still back in hold. That's good. Okay, well, in a perfect world, I'd be sitting in a urban farm with a young, intelligent group of free thinkers and free planners. Really the roots and the seeds of what made this country great on so many levels. But unfortunately, it's not a perfect world. And we have to work things out. They've got to work out their relationship to the UC Regents, to the City of Albany, to the mainstream media, and to public in general, who in some ways have become a little disheartened and disenchanted with the Occupy movement. And so they've got to figure out how they're going to make their experience work, just like I had to figure out how I was going to make my experience work today when they have no Wi-Fi. But that's life, we figure it out, we wing it, we move on, and hopefully we grow and evolve. And as a result, there's more novelty, more complexity, and more creativity. So I'm not going to stay on the air much longer. I booked the show for 2 hours today. I had hoped to have more people from the Gill Tract, but we did have Anya, and I'm glad I had her on the show. And I just wanted to tell you guys that it looks like I'm putting together a webinar for hopefully the 16th of June. And I've got Theo White and Molly Hall on board for this webinar, and it's taking place on the Pluto-Uranus square. So I'm pretty excited about that. I was approached by somebody to see if we could put this together, and both Theo and Molly have agreed to do this. So now it's just putting everything in place and getting the right technology up. So it's going to be about the Pluto-Uranus square, not just on that day, but over the course of the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. People who know Theo White's work understand that he is really into the long count of the squares. And that's Theo's a Capricorn. That's his sweet spot. He's been blogging about the Pluto-Uranus square for quite a while, and especially as we come up on Saturn in Cancer, which is right after Saturn in Gemini, and that's going to be a real mother. Trust me on that. Saturn opposing Pluto is going to be pretty significant. So we're going to talk about that. Theo will bring his brand of wisdom to the webinar. Molly, I'm hoping she'll do something on the feminine, sacred, more maybe perhaps on the sort of on the pagan tip, and we'll look at the Pluto-Saturn square from that angle, and I'll probably look at it from the personal sovereignty and unveiling the reality dream matrix angle. So all three of us will come together, and we'll also have possibly Sherry Mazzocchi, who will do some other stuff, and some meditations and some invocations. It should be a really cool event. We just have to put the bolts on it now. And the good news is that Theo's a Capricorn, Molly is a Cancer, and for all intents and purposes, I'm almost a Libra. So we've got the T-square going down, the future T-square happening between the three of us. So we should make something happen. Okay, I didn't get any sleep last night, by the way. So I've been up, almost 36 hours or whatever it is. I'm a little tired. I'm a little edgy. I'm a little ragged, but I got the show in. And I hope you got something out of it. What I might do is when they get a more robust Wi-Fi component, I might go back to the Gill Tract in a couple of weeks, maybe after they have the meeting between UC and the city of Albany, and we'll do a proper live show there, a proper 2-hour show with the right hookups in a much more peaceful, calm, and relaxing environment. Okay, I want to thank everybody for hanging in there and listening for the last hour. And I want to thank Anya from the Occupy Gill Tract movements. I'll be back on Wednesday for 2 hours of astrology and free readings. And we'll look at some of the really big aspects that are upcoming. The annular eclipse, Venus retrograde, all headed our way on the back end of that powerful Scorpio moon. Say a prayer for our friend Nathan down in Southern California, who is struggling to deal with this mortgage crisis and a lot of what a lot of other people are going through right now. Just have a good thought for him in the moment. Hang in there, Nathan. Come back on the show, in a couple of weeks and let us know how you're doing. And that's it. I think that's all I've got today. So use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I want to thank you for listening and hanging in. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'll see you on Wednesday.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming pressure that we would be living the present digitally, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and legitimate, and I will even say this: once an impression is a proof that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.